Welcome to the Breakfast Leadership Show, where we interview global thought leaders on business, leadership, and life. Here's your host, keynote speaker, best-selling author, and chief burnout officer of the Breakfast Leadership Network, Michael Levitt.
Welcome. I've got Cliff Farrah on the line. Cliff, how are you?
I'm doing well, Mike. How about you?
I'm awesome. You've got an interesting backstory and you've got a brand new book coming out pretty soon. So I want to share with the audience a little bit about you and the book, and then we'll dive right into whatever we happen to land on.
You bet. So so my name's Cliff Farrah. I'm the president and CEO of the Beacon Group. We're a growth strategy consulting firm based up in Portland, Maine. And we help essentially clients in the Fortune 200 grow their top line. And we've been in business now. This is actually our 20th year in business. Yeah, I know. Seems like a blink in many ways, and in other ways, it feels like forever. But 20 years. We've done over 1,500 projects for our clients in that time, all focused on growth strategy development. And this year's also great because we're launching a book. I've written a book that will be coming out probably in the June timeframe. COVID's really throwing off a whole bunch of things. You have to think about when travel is going to resume, and the supply chain logistics are kind of crazy right now. But right now we're targeting June for a launch in the book, and it's been a great exercise writing it, and it shares quite a bit about how we think as a firm about the development of growth strategy. So that's kind of who I am and what I'm about.
Well, that's great. And I look forward to the book coming out. It's going to be an amazing thing. And I agree with you. The supply chain and COVID disrupted so much in book launches and ordering things. My brother just bought a new house, and the new couch and love seat he ordered, he will probably be delivered in June, which, a year or two ago, you order something like that, it's going to be delivered on whatever weekend is convenient for you and not 6 months out. So it's definitely the world. So I'd love to pick on the book a bit, and then we can dive in on, some of the experience, especially with your clients.
Sure.
Over this last year. Or so, because COVID has impacted everybody. Right. And, Fortune 200 companies, of course, because of the scale of it, they've got dynamics of, it's impacting us at all of our locations, but in different ways. So it's not as simple, we'll just do this. Like, that works great in Maine, but that doesn't work really well in Los Angeles or in Portugal or in Japan or wherever else these organizations are based. And if they're Fortune 200, they've got a couple locations. So love to hear your thoughts on that.
You bet. Well, I think the past year has been either feast or famine for most companies. And the scale of the company actually, it matters because, the larger the company, the more diversified you hope the client base is, the less impact you have. But the trade-off there is that the larger the company, the more the operating cost, the more the impact is felt. So there are very few entities, I think, globally that have been unscathed by this. We have spent a lot of time trying to help our clients understand the severity and length of time that the pandemic is likely to have an impact on their business. And, we as a firm, we work in healthcare, we work in industrials, we work in defense, we work in tech. And then horizontally, we do quite a bit of work on the M&A front. And we also offer services that we allow our expert network to our clients. So those are the things we do as an entity. I would say our healthcare clients suffered both feast and famine. Anyone involved with testing, and PPP did really well in the early days, counterbalanced by the deficit of traditional healthcare activities that we would go do in an office. through a provider. So there's a lot of transition in that. The hospitals suffered greatly as they prepared for the pandemic in terms of traditional treatments, and then now that we've transitioned arguably successfully to this remote care world, this care at a distance world. They've continued to sort of bear the brunt of that because there's a lot of traditional services that you would go to a hospital for that you can now get over over what we're doing right now over video. So that that's been a really interesting time. I think the economy's in an interesting place right now. Our clients have gone from sort of Q1 uncertainty, Q2 tightening, Q3 rebound, and then Q4 expansion. So I feel actually quite optimistic about how markets are rebounding globally. And you're right, most of our clients don't just have a domestic U.S. footprint. In fact, the funny part is, I've been doing this now for 30 years. I've never had a client in the town I lived in. So I'm always on a plane or I'm always on the phone, and so our clients serve global populations, and there's been an awful lot of consistency, I think, both in terms of the impact of the pandemic and then the economic recovery. Let me stop there and kind of get your reactions to that.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a ton of sense in everything you said, and especially I worked in healthcare for about a dozen years during my career, and the feast and famine is definitely right on. It's like, okay, wow, we've got more volume than we can deal with, but we've got to do things completely differently in a virtual type of environment for so many things, and sorting all of that out, getting equipment, going, okay, now we need to get cameras on computers. Are the physicians and the nurse practitioners and the RNs and the social workers, are they going to be at home? Are they going to be in the clinic? Is it going to be a hybrid? We got to get all of the equipment set up. We have to make sure that they have all the networking and all of that, so there's costs involved with that. And of course, supply and demand, as we recall back in the spring, if you wanted a camera, and you ordered it on Amazon, you were going to be paying a premium for it because everyone else was buying them too.
Yeah.
But then the demands of ramping up all of this equipment and getting everything in place, and then it's one of these things where it's like, okay, now we're ready, and then the target changes. Like, okay, now what? And okay, now we've got vaccines, so now it's a shift from dealing with everybody that needs to be on a ventilator to how are we going to distribute, hundreds of millions of doses? How's that work? How's that coordinated? When are they coming? Who takes priority? It's not just it's flu shot season. Okay, book your appointment. Well, no, it's what traffic are you in? What first, and again in a global situation, figuring out who's essential or who's not. And I like to joke. I split my time between Canada or Toronto and San Diego, and I'm in Toronto right now, and of course with the border closed,
great city.
Yeah, thank you. Both cities are great. It's I wish I was right now because it'd be a heck of a lot warmer, but you deal with it. But you know what winter's like. But at the end of the day, it's one of those things where I can't cross the border, not deemed as an essential employee. So I joke with my mom. I said, "I'm sorry, Mom, I can't visit you because I'm not essential." And
burnout isn't a clinical condition for enterprise employees. You can't argue that.
Well, I could argue some things. I mean, there's ways I could do it, but with President Biden's new stipulation of a 10-day quarantine. So and then of course, if I come back here, then I'm in a 14-day quarantine. So there's 24 days that I'm thrown into a hole basically, and I'm thinking, okay, for a day trip or to speak conference, doesn't make a lot of sense for me to do that. But
I don't know about you, but I'm thrilled that I haven't looked at my Delta app in months, right? Quarters. It's been.
Yeah, I know on mine, because I have an iPhone. If you don't use an app after a while, it goes into this like you need to re-download it. So there's a lot of travel apps that are just saying, it's really not on my phone right now because I haven't used them in a while. I still get the occasional email, hey, we miss you. It's like, I kind of miss you too. I miss my luggage. I saw it the other day. It's like, how's it going? And I was hoping, I hope there isn't any dirty clothes in there because that's going to be a nasty discovery when I get to fly again. But I'll wear a mask and then we get those anyway and see how that goes. But
sure.
A lot of stuff you said there was important, and with again navigating in a leadership type of role when there really isn't a playbook on how to deal with some of these things, you have to lean on the playbooks you do have on how to lead and navigate through crisis and navigate through a changing landscape of things. And those types of things have happened to us depending on the region. And of course, in North America, there's all types of different things that we've experienced in the last 100 years or even in the last 20. But navigating through those changes requires, let's get collective input. Let's look at the landscape. Let's make our best guess on how to navigate through this.
Yeah. So we were big this year on helping our clients be self-aware. When you get into our belief is when you get into a situation where the economy is in a downturn, and we saw this in 2008. I founded the firm in 2000 post 9/11, right? So economy in decline. At that point, your focal plane has to shift away from the traditional, I don't know, it depends how big your client, how big your company is, but, market segment share, share of wallet, all the kinds of things you worry about. And you have to look comparatively at how you're doing against peer entities, right? If everyone's in decline, if everyone's going down, then looking at like last year's forecast is just a waste of time. Just throw it out the window. It's all about, how am I doing relative to peers? How do I stay afloat? How do I keep people employed? And so for our clients, what we believed is that, if you were smart about how the market was evolving and shifting, and you were dynamic in how you approached those changes, you could take share. And if you took that share, when the market rebounds, and we've seen this a couple of times, right? When the market does start to recover, if you can hold on to that share, you get bounce and you get more than your fair share at that point. So we've certainly done a lot of work, voice of customer, voice of market activities, feeding that sense of self-awareness for our clients. And even in good times, that understanding of the terrain you're fighting on and the forces you're up against and, the geopolitical pressures that shape that landscape moving forward are critical to making good growth strategies and to driving growth for companies.
Even up, and I love the fact you mentioned, launching a business, right after 9/11. And of course we had the Great Recession in 2008 and all of that. A lot of great businesses that we take for granted today as being just part of our normal day-to-day life were birthed in very difficult times. And
9/11, I was supposed to be on the second plane that went into the towers, and I canceled the night before to go race sailboats. I was a really bad sailor back then, and I'm better now. But it was a dodged bullet that was that watershed moment of life is too short. So, I always wanted to have my own firm, and I figured, I probably should think about it. My wife was like, just do it. I credit her with a lot of the success that I've had in my life. And, but I think you're right. I think if you look at our client base, what happens at a time like this is people shift jobs. So sometimes they're moving from one company to another. I have a number of clients that we helped migrate to new companies that they're working in. And then other ones just go out and they hang their own shingle on the wall and they start something new. And I think that's fantastic. In life, while we get comfortable on a particular path, I think there is always opportunity for there to be a pivot in times of shift. And this is definitely an unprecedented in our lifetimes time of change and opportunity.
I've had a lot of people tell me they look at it as the Great Reset in many cases for their own lives, and maybe as a society as a whole. Yeah. But it's definitely an opportunity for people if they're looking at wanting to do something and they've been thinking about it and kicking the tires. I your spouse for telling you just do it. She
didn't kick the tires. She kicked something else.
I've got somebody in my life that does the same thing, and why sometimes I wince a little bit when I sit down because it hurts, but it heals eventually. Until she kicks me again. But at the end of the day, it's why not? And not letting fear or risk or any of those things get in your way. It's like, look, you think about it. You think of all the great businesses that have been launched and all that. It's like those all started with an idea and a thought and a plan and something that would make things better for people. And everybody's got something like that in them. Not everybody can be an entrepreneur. Doesn't mean they don't have good ideas, but I know a lot of people that launch businesses and they're not a good entrepreneur. So I've guided them to say, well, you've got something that's probably good and marketable, but you're not the one to run it. So find somebody that is entrepreneurial, work out some type of an arrangement with them, and then you can, be able to take the business off that way. And a lot of people have done that as well and been successful at it. But again, there's nothing wrong with doing it because we've all seen the thing, and at the end of our life, we regret not doing the things we wanted to do.
Right.
Do them. If it blows up, it blows up.
What's funny too, we're seeing a lot is that our clients, when things get tight, right? The Fortune 200, they have this revenue needle they need to sustain and grow. And when economic environments get tight, they look for adjacent markets. They look for new swim lanes. They look for new revenue streams. And that entrepreneurial spirit is actually quite attractive in companies at that point. Normal business, maybe not so much, right? You're the troublemaker. But when things are tough, they're looking for something new. And I think, it's always exciting to see people get a swing at the plate for their passions inside the larger companies at times like that.
Yeah, I love when organizations give their employees that creative space to be creative and not go from project to project to project without breathing or reflecting on, okay, what went well, what didn't, or, okay, you're more efficient than somebody else on something. Okay, well, be creative. What do you think? What about this? And really take a moment and stare at the wall and let things come to you. Whether it's in the shower or even just sitting and reflecting and not necessarily doing something at that particular moment. That's when a lot of creative ideas come to light and can be a brand new offering or a better way to do something that'll benefit your clients and your organization.
One of the things we find, and it's part of the reason I wrote the book, is that if you have a good idea, or you have this aspiration to grow or to drive revenue, whatever, it's this wildly free exercise in the sense of you're not limited. Cost, when you worry about cost, and you have to worry about cost to be fair, right? You can't go after growth without thinking about profit. But when you're thinking about growth, it's infinite, right? It's just limited by what you sell and the customers that you have. Those are the two variables that all money comes from a customer. And what you choose to sell them is what drives price and recurring revenue and sustainability and scale and all those sorts of things. But it's incredibly broad. So how do you focus that down? How do you flunk bad bets and get to good bets? So for people who might not be as entrepreneurial and intuitive as others who are built to be entrepreneurs, I think what we've offered in this book is a really structured process and framework that in a repeatable way helps you figure out what a good bet is versus a bad bet. And that kind of process, that repeatable set of steps, the framework that really highlights good versus bad, winner versus loser. can avoid a lot of pain for people down the road. And when the economies are tight, avoidance of pain is half the battle, right? You don't want to step in the bear trap. You don't want to make a bad bet because it could be irrevocable. So
it's like investing in stocks. You could say, oh, wow, this stock is great. And you buy a bunch of and you accidentally bought it at the high and then it drops 75% the next day.
GameStop. Yeah. Hold on to that GameStop.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, that was insane to watch. And
it's not over.
No, it's not. And it's literally, pardon the, them and AMC, pardon the pun, but grab the popcorn because it's fun to watch. And, it's so volatile and you can get into a trade. It's like, oh, wow, it hit, $15 a share. Okay, let's get it. But by the time it gets executed, you sell it at 13. You ended up losing $2 a share. And like, wait a minute, it was at 15. It's like, it's literally like just bouncing all the
timing is everything. Yeah,
it is. Question. And it's and then that's the thing with leadership and everything else. So in wrapping up in your new book, what's your favorite chapter?
There's a chapter on how to build a team, whether you're part of a large organization or you're an entrepreneur, to help you execute. And I really like that because I think at the end of the day, it's impossible to succeed by yourself. And the team that you need to be successful is quite a bit broader than what you think right now. So we dig into that, and it's fun because I've been lucky enough to be part of some great teams in my career, and I always appreciate the chance to get to work with new people in new ways.
No, that's great. I really look forward to seeing this book. So, loved our conversation today. Where can people find out more about you and this incredible work that you do?
So our firm is called the Beacon Group, and we're at beacongroupconsulting.com. So it's www.beacongroupconsulting.com. The book, you can go to our website there, or you can go to clifffarrah.com and see more about it. It's available for pre-order right now at Amazon and Barnes & Noble. And, we have, what's great about the firm's website is we have plenty of white papers that talk to COVID and approaches to deal with COVID that are free to access for people. So hopefully you can steer some folks there.
It's awesome, and I'll definitely have that in the show notes. So, Cliff, thank you again for the amazing work you do, and
thanks,
congratulations again on the new book.
I appreciate you inviting me on today, and I really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Breakfast Leadership Show, part of the Breakfast Leadership Network. Visit breakfastleadership.com for tips on empowering your business and your life.